the leadership team this evening. What I'm going to do is start by running through almost like a roll call of all the lead members who are present here. Could you just, according to the list, just call out your name and turn your camera on so people know who you are and just say that you're present. So I'll start. I'm Elizabeth Campbell, I'm the chair, and I'm here. Anne?
Hello, I'm Anne Siren and I'm here.
Hello, I'm Catherine Folkes and I'm present.
Hi there, Jem Kamali, present.
Hi there, everyone. Josh Rendell, lead member for Families and Children, and I'm here.
Hello, Kim Taylor-Smith, and I'm present.
Hello, Johnny Thalassisis, and I am present.
Mary Wheel, present.
Hello, I'm Emma Will.
Great. So just to say again, the meeting is going to be run in accordance with the Council standing orders and the protocol and procedures for remote meetings. And the way that we will run it is that we'll go through the agenda, the lead members will ask questions, we'll discuss it. I will then ask the chair of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee if she's got any additional comments, and then I will open up questions to other councillors who are present. If you wish to answer a question, could you just put your hand up, or could you put a note in the chat? But probably a hand up is probably best. And with that, again, I say if you're asking a question, please turn your camera on. Otherwise, could you keep your cameras off and your microphones off at all times? Thank you. And now we will start the meeting with a 72-second silence to remember those lives lost in the Grenfell Tower tragedy.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I believe there are no apologies for absence. Are there any declarations of interest? If I don't hear from anyone, I'll assume, therefore, there are no declarations of interests. The minutes of the leadership team meeting held on the 9th of December, there has been a revision to them. I hope you have read them, and can I therefore confirm that they are now correct and that I can sign them?
Agreed.
Thank you. And in addition, unless there are any, alterations to the Part B minutes, can I take those in public session? Can we please agree that those minutes are correct so that I can sign them?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Okay, could we please move on then to item A4, which is about the extension of grant funding for Carnival Village Trust. Emma, would you like to introduce this?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I hope, I'm sure you've all had a chance to read it. It's pretty straightforward. Essentially, what we're recommending here is that we extend the funding to Carnival Village Trust for another year, until March 2022 for the sum of £95,500. And that's really, we are very much in discussion with them. We know the work they do is an important, very important part of our community in North Kent, and obviously want to support that. And this just allows us to continue those conversations and sort out the longer term lease issues that we're looking into. So I'm very happy to answer questions, as is, I think Terry Oliver is here and can as well. So that's it in a nutshell, and open to questions.
Any questions anyone wants to ask? Silence. Kim.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Yes, I mean, obviously, Carnival Village Trust, fantastic organisation and a very good example of social investment in action as well. And clearly, it's a great distress that we've had this year that we haven't actually been able to attend the carnival, but much looking forward to it as far as the future. I think I just really wanted to highlight one thing on this, is that I had a quick look at the accounts of Carnival Village Trust, and the accounts to 2019 show net assets of 2.5 million and a turnover of 2.6 million. And I very much support the fact that we are giving this extension to enable a business plan to be put together by the Carnival Village Trust, and also for us to evaluate the costs that are going to be required on the building. It is a grade 1 listed building, and there are a lot of issues in terms of repair. So really, I think it's a question really just for officers is obviously to ensure that we are going to do a proper evaluation on the ability of Carnival Village Trust, if we do grant a longer term lease, to continue to be able to maintain that building. They operate from 2 buildings. When I look at their website, they've got the YIA Centre, which is clearly something which has been refurbished using money from the Arts Council on the grant of a longer lease. And I would hope that again we could look at as a potential model as far as they're concerned moving forward. But really just to seek a reassurance that we will look into the costs of running this building in the future, so the council doesn't have to get involved in that liability.
Which officer would like to respond, and then I'll bring Councillor Wheel in.
I'm happy to respond on that. The council definitely really sensible comments there and totally taken on board. So, as you know, we are working with Carnival Village Trust on that. They have got the YAR Centre in Westminster, and we can definitely look at using that model. The whole thing around trying to extend the lease is that we can actually access external funding from whether it's the Art Council or other kind of trusts that will allow significant investment into that building. Because as you said, it is a grade 2 listed building, I think it is, and it does need significant investment. So it is about working with them, working with our property colleagues as well to make sure that the building does get the investment and we can try and maximise external funding.
Thank you. Mary.
Yes, I just wanted to endorse the approach in the paper, because I think Carnival Village Trust is a really excellent organisation, but Kim's absolutely right. This is a good way of just sort of having a bit more of a think about what the long-term solution is for this building. And there does have to be a long-term solution, and I hope I'm sure it will involve the Carnival Village Trust, but this is a good breather and very necessary. So I thoroughly support it.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Chair, may I just thank particularly Kim. Really, helpful comments. As I say, it's very important to me that we support CVT, but we do need to work through this carefully. And he and I have met with them, and I think we're going to meet with them again. And I think it would be great if we put this challenge to them, so that he gets the answers to those questions. So I think they're really helpful questions. But but I hope in the meantime we can agree the 95,000 tonight.
Well, I have to say, Carnival Village Trust did a fantastic job this year, getting the whole carnival up and being done virtually. And we look forward to them coming back and being able to run a carnival in person, as it were, this year. And let's cross our fingers. Before we agree to this extension of grant funding, I just want to see whether we have any other councillors here who wish to ask a question. Councillor Mary-Therese Rossi, Chair of the View and Scrutiny, is there anything you wish to ask?
Yeah, I'm very much in favour of this. I think the Carnival Village Trust do really good work, and I think that the Tabernacle is a tremendous asset in the community, and so I'm in favour of anything that protects it and gives it a longer life. Thank you. And Councillor Pat Mason.
I would just say, of course, I absolutely agree. This is an excellent organisation. The TAB has been, over the decades, the centre of Carnival, and has been a great sort of ambassadorial advert for the borough for decades. And I sat on various working groups over the last 20 years when they have been in and out of financial problems, and we've always managed to pull them out. So, of course, we as Labour Council, of course, would absolutely support this funding to the TAB, and hope that they are able to, because there's always been an issue about the self-funding of the TAB. This has been going on for 15, 20 years. It's a very difficult balance to get to, and I hope we'll be very careful doing that, because we don't want to destabilise, obviously, the CVT or the Carnival. It's been difficult over the years, but this seems to be going in the right direction. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So on the basis that's everyone happy to approve the extension of grant funding for Carnival Village Trust, for the granting of further extension, the two points on the screen, are you all happy to agree with those recommendations?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you very much. Okay, the next paper is the Treasury Management Strategy Mid-Year Review. So I think this is Mary and Mike Curtis as well. Mary.
So if I just do a quick introduction, I mean, this is a very straightforward paper. In a sense, it needs to be adopted, but it is really just a mid-term review and doesn't presage any change in policy at all. I suppose what this paper really clearly outlines as a sort of side aspect really is what difficult financial times we're in. And you can partly see that by the fact that our income from our assets has fallen, and interest rates are now at 0.1%. So in previous sort of periods, we've gained quite a lot of income from our reserves and assets. That is obviously under pressure at the moment. The strategy itself is under review this year with officers to see if there are prudent ways in which we can squeeze more out of our assets. And of course, the other aspect of this is that the capital programme is reviewed quarterly. That's another aspect of this. But really, there's nothing more to say except that this describes difficult financial circumstances and pressure for the council. Mike, is there anything you wanted to add? Or
I was going to say, no, I wonder whether, Mike, is there anything you'd like to add or highlight? Or
no, I think that sums it. I think that sums it up. Difficult times, but we're in a strong position.
Yes, yes. Are there any questions? I suppose it's what you touched on, Mary, is whether, given that interest rates are so low, are you looking at different investment opportunities or anything, or where are you with that? Oh, you're on mute.
I'm at my best on mute, I always think. But anyway, as I touched on in my introduction, there is a review going on this year at other ways of other things we might be able to invest in, keeping prudence at the forefront to get a bit more money out of our assets. I don't know, Mike, if you want to comment on that.
Yeah, I mean, we will look at, and we are looking at actively at what opportunities there are, but obviously this is the council's core resources, and it's important to not take really any risks with them at all. But the returns we're getting are so low that we do need to see if there are any other options. The main thing we're doing really is to hold off on borrowing, and to leave that as late as possible, because the expectation is that borrowing rates will stay low. But if we borrow too far ahead, then we have money that we can't really do anything with. We lose, even though we're borrowing quite low rates, we'll still lose out because we can't place it anywhere.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Mike. Are there any other comments from either, any other questions anyone wants to ask? And the sort of more general floor, as it were, with Marie-Therese or Mason?
Yeah, I have a few questions. If you can just answer, someone can answer them. So the paper says that you think the base rates will be held until March 23. I just wonder how you could be certain of that. Also, I accept that we can afford to take on some loans, but I see no indication of when we're going to pay them back. And then thirdly, it's just something I don't understand. In point 5.3, you refer to underborrowing or underborrowed in a table, and I don't understand what that means.
Mike.
Okay. I think, all right, yeah, Mike, I'm sure better answering them than me.
Okay. I mean, obviously, we can't be certain that base rates will be held. That's just the best advice that we have, and we've got we have Treasury Management advisors who provide information on that and give us their best advice, and so that's where we get that from, really. But obviously, we don't know. But the expectation is that they'll stay. They will stay low for some considerable time, and there was even consideration that they might go down and actually become negative, but that seems to have waned a bit lately. In terms of repayment, we provide in the revenue budget for the repayment of loans, and indeed in the HRA business plan. So it's part of the budget process. There is a capital financing cost for the borrowing that's included within the policy, and in terms of under borrowing, really that's just saying that we borrowed less than we have permission to do. So the limits that are set as part of the budget process are the highest that we're allowed to do without going back to the council. So under borrowing is really just that we didn't need to go to that level. So it's not a bad thing. It just means that we were using internal resources to fund any expenditure rather than going out to the market and borrowing the money for capital, whether in housing or otherwise.
So just to add to that, maybe I think most in response to your question about paying back, most of our loans we base on our repayments on 20 years. Is that right, Mike?
Yeah, 20 or 25. It varies by asset. Yeah.
So the costs of borrowing in our accounts include the cost of capital repayment over 20 years.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? No. Thank you. Then can we please recommend that the Council approves and adopts the Treasury Management Strategy Mid-Year Review 2020 to 21. Do we all agree?
Agreed.
Thank you. Could we now pass on to paper A6, which is really the update to the medium-term financial planning 2021 budget and service prospects. So again, Mary and Mike.
Okay, I'll do a quick introduction. So everyone will feel that they've seen this several times, and that's because they have. The difference this time is that we've got a much more clarity about the local government financial settlement, and I think we thought we had clarity about other things that perhaps we don't, but I'll come on to that. And a notable aspect of the settlement was more money than we expected to have, which really is welcome for local authorities, including an extra 1.1 million for adult social care and greater unhypothecated grants. Also, the announcement that we'll be allowed to raise council tax should we wish to by 3% for adult social care, adult social care precept rather than the normal 2%, and 1.99% for council tax, a total of just under 5%, as opposed to a normal maximum over the last however many years of about 4%. So that means that we've got a challenge about whether we do that or not. Obviously, the year ahead is looking very difficult because of COVID still. Things aren't going to get back to normal just like that, and certainly not for a good 6 months anyway. And we've got to provide a good quality of service to an increasing number of people, and we have an increasing number of people on council tax reduction scheme. But that discussion and that decision will be made at the next month's leadership team and council meeting, reflecting also obviously on all the consultation that we've been doing. Mike, is there anything you want to add to that?
Sorry, I was still muted. I think that covers most of it. Yes, it's mostly a technical report to do the various things like agreeing the council tax base and so forth that we have to do at this time of year, and the position update on the position on the collection fund, and then, as Councillor Will says, to update on the local government settlement, which was mostly as we expected when we last reported, but with some variations such as was referred to.
And sorry, I did forget to add that one of the other variations is that this assumes, based on the Mayor's previous utterances, a 1.99% increase in the GLA precept. But I believe that he announced at the beginning, the Mayor announced at the beginning of the week, contrary to that he intends to or wants to raise his portion by 9.5%, although this will need Commons permission or to avoid a referendum on the issue. So watch this space. We're not quite sure what's happening, and that obviously affects the bill that goes out to our residents. About a third of the bill is affected by the GLA precept. So so times whatever he does by a third, and you'll see the real increase that will be put on our council tax by the GLA.
But you're saying that the Mayor's not necessarily allowed to do that. You have to have a referendum. Or
he'll get some kind of ministerial position. I'm not quite sure what whether he'll actually have to go through the House of Commons in some way, or whether the minister can just sign it off. It's not clear to me what has to happen, but it's definitely he's subject to the same sort of rules that we are in terms of a cap. Is that right, Mike?
Yes, some aspects of what he's proposing he needs to get. I think it's ministerial permission. I don't know it will need the Commons, just ministerial permission to proceed with, because it's all to do with the problems that the GLA have got in various services because of COVID. But he needs permission to do that. So won't be able to do 9.5% without that. So it's not certain yet, but it is certainly a possibility.
Sorry, I think going through the Commons does seem a bit odd, but that was actually on the press release, on the notes of the press release suggested that, which I thought was very strange. But I'm sure you're right, it is just ministerial permission. Sorry.
Thank you. Are there other questions from the leadership team? Catherine.
Hello, thank you. Yes, I just wanted to ask a question about 5.4 on the business rates, because I just didn't quite understand that paragraph, because it's suggesting that the level of collection might drop by 20% because of the lack of economic activity, but that we have a settlement that will retain 52.7. And I thought we just retained a percentage. So will we retain that 52.7 regardless of a drop in income or not? Just a bit of clarity around that would be helpful. Thank you.
Mike, you're happy to explain that? I feel my powers of explanation are failing me on this one.
We suffer some detriment for the for a drop in business rates, but there's a safety net which prevents us suffering the full drop. So and also the drop is obviously shared between all the different people who the business rates goes to, which the vast majority of which obviously is pooled by central government. Some of it also pooled in a pool within London. So there's a very big disconnect between the amount that we collect from the businesses and the amount that we actually get. They're quite difficult to reconcile, but basically we don't suffer the full consequences of the drop. No, we're protected from that.
So you're saying we will definitely get the 52 million regardless?
Yes, that's within the settlement, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other? Kim. Could I just ask, once you've asked a question, can you put your hands down again? Because then otherwise it's a bit confusing.
Well, it's actually a very simplistic question, actually. I'm sure I could work it out if I got my calculator. But really, what would we have to increase council tax by if we just wanted to balance the books?
At the moment, more than 4.99%, because we've still got a small gap of 700,000. Is that correct, Mike? Just checking that I'm not missing
yes. At the moment, the gap is more than the 4.99%, and the 4.99% is the maximum we can do without a referendum.
All right, thank you.
And does that include all the grants that the government have given us throughout this year to help with COVID and things? Or I guess it's next year, so it doesn't make a difference.
Yes, it's looking forward to next year.
Yeah.
This year, yeah.
Okay. Anyone else on the leadership team before I ask Mary-Therese if she has any comments? As you said, Mary, we've seen this several times before, and it'll come back again when we decide, what level we should put the council tax at. No, Pat, you've been very patient there.
Oh, I thought you were going for Mary-Therese first.
I did, but she didn't want to ask anything. I don't.
Oh no, I do.
Oh, you do? Okay.
I don't mind. Okay, so firstly, on page 5. There's a table which says previously approved savings, and it seems to be supporting and safeguarding vulnerable residents. There seems to be a saving there of 1.5 million, and I don't quite understand how that could be a saving in a year like this.
I guess it's next year. Anyway,
sorry, next year, even still.
So the breakdown of that is in the previous paper. Mike, can you remember much of the detail of that? What it's made up of?
I haven't got that in front of me, but they are the savings that were agreed in the previous paper. Yeah. So in last year's budget report, actually. So they're previously agreed. They're in progress. They're the consequence of the decisions that were made in last year's budget process. So it is considered possible to still deliver those, and the identification there is basically by council priority, but they were agreed as part of last year's budget process.
Okay.
So it's just there for information, really. Okay.
So I've got 2 more quick questions on 6.9 and 6.11. Going on about income streams, saying any shortfall going into next year will be met by the income compensation scheme by the government, but you're only getting 70% from them as far as I can see. And the second thing I would query at 6.11 is that you're assuming for 2021-22 additional income of 969,000, and I just wonder how that would be possible if we carry on as we are now.
Sorry, which one was the second?
The first one was 6.9.
Yeah.
6.9. It's only, well, my understanding is that you only get 70%, and then the additional income that you're expecting in 21-22, but it's almost £1 million. I'm not quite sure that is going to come through.
Where's it coming from is really Mary-Therese's question. You'll have an additional income of £1 million. Where from?
So I think the two are related in the sense that, yeah, we agree that they are challenging. They're challenging targets given the continuation of COVID. And you're correct. We will only get 70% of any loss in terms of any of these budgets back from the government. But really, we also have a substantial contingency set in the budget that you'll be looking at next month. So we'd be able to use that as well, and we take actions within the year to try and mitigate any failure to collect, any inability to collect that income. So it's really similar to the position that it's been this year. The government's funded a fair amount of the shortfall, but it hasn't funded all of the shortfall in our income, or indeed the extra expenditure that we've had. So I think it will still be a robust budget that will be set in March, but undoubtedly challenging.
So the additional income is including money from the government in the income compensation scheme. Is that what you're saying?
If we fail to make that income ourselves, then the government will give us through the income compensation scheme. We can claim 70% or approximately 70% of that back. So that gives us 70% protection, if you like. And then otherwise we'll have to either make it in other ways through the financial year, or we will have to use our contingency or our reserves. And that's really precisely, I think, what we've done this year. So we have been successful in doing that this year, and I think we will be successful in doing that next year.
Okay, thank you.
And if I can just interject, going back to your first question, Marie-Therese, there is a link on that paper just to show you the breakdown of the savings, but quite a large chunk of it is to do with temporary accommodation costs and prevention and early intervention, and also some contingency that in the youth budget that is no longer required, but the detail is there behind it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Pat.
Yes, Mary mentioned, of course, that we've seen this paper before in various forms: July, September, November, December, and this one, and it hasn't hugely changed a lot. So I assume that the headline figure of the loss with COVID as at December, 45.7 million, I think it is. I mean, I assume that figure is something about the same for this budget, and is going to be phased in over 3 years. On the mayoral position, I mean, leaving the ideology aside, I mean, the of course at 9 point, if he gets 9.5, I think %, it's lower than we thought it would be. But the transport system and the Freedom Pass and the under-18s pass has to be funded somehow, and it's either funded through a precept that people pay, or they pay at the other end. They pay by paying higher fares, or having no Freedom Pass, or people paying 3 or 5 bus fares for their children when they can't afford it, etc. And we have to, we either let the transport system collapse, or we as a society or as Londoners, pay for a basic transport system, given that the last mayor of London gave away the entire annual 700 million a year transport operating subsidy, which I think personally is a crazy thing to do. We're the only transport system in the world that doesn't have one. And that 90% of the fares are lost during COVID. I think we have to understand that we have to pay somehow. Our residents need a transport system to work when they can, if they can work, and if and when the schools are back. The buses and we can't just keep thinking of this ideologically. If the last mayor had been in office, he would have had to do the same thing effectively with the severe, drastic loss of income. But this budget overall, I assume that the figure phased in over 3 years is about the same. And of course, we in Overview and Scrutiny and in the budget working group meeting last week trawled through the entire panoply of the MTFS then. And we've looked at all the reviews, etc. Capital. I said, for example, of course, Mary knows this. I've said this again and again, that we need to squeeze some more money out of capital. And these huge IT projects that I remember when I was chair of Exec and Corps, we were told was spending on an average of 5 million a year. And I thought we should be reviewing that more severely. And of course, that may be being done within the 230 million contract review. So maybe we could squeeze some bigger figures out of those, because those are the big multi-million pound spends. So that's basically it at the moment. We've said lots in those various meetings, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
I can just respond to that a bit. Having not said you weren't going to be political, Pat, you obviously were, but I'm glossing over that. And just to say that, as this paper demonstrated, what we were expecting was what the Mayor had said, which was 1.99%, which is why 9.5% is worth commenting on in this meeting. And you made the point about IT in the OSC, and I am very open to the OSC taking a big dig around into our IT budget. We always welcome scrutiny, and that seems a good idea to scrutinise. Having said that, it's very important, as you will see in the growth items, that we pay enough attention to and commit enough resource to cyber safety and security on the council. I'll just make that a comment in passing.
I've always agreed with that, Mary.
I know you have.
And
Good.
I suppose just to say on COVID, I mean, obviously the figure, pinning down the figure even for this year is very difficult. It had gone down, it had reduced from the figure you quoted, Councillor Mason, to about 35 million gross before the government grants. Obviously it's a lot less after we've applied the extra money we've got from government to it. It probably will go up because of the because of the current lockdown. Well, it undoubtedly will go up, but again, we will get more support from government for that. We'd hope it was a considerably lower impact next year, but it undoubtedly will have some impact during the year, and that's why it's, as I say, it's important that we have a contingency, and that we, as it does emerge, we lobby government in a non-political way for resources to cover the impact of it.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't believe there are any more other questions. I can't see anyone else's hands up. So can we please agree to the recommendations which are in paragraph 2 and which are on the screen ahead of you? Agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. And now we come to the final item on our agenda tonight, which is actually not for agreeing, but it's for noting, because it's a key decision which I had to take as an urgent key decision about the approach that we have to COVID asymptomatic targeted community testing and mass vaccination. But actually, since even since well, barely was the ink dry on the decision that I had to take, is that really things have changed again. And I don't know, Jem, whether you'd like to comment on the paper or tell us what's changed.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Firstly, I'd like to thank all the officers that have not only put this paper together, but have rolled out to such great effect what was called mass testing, which later became called community testing. We now have 3 centres across the borough which are operating. What has changed since the key decision was put together is that we are now prioritising key workers, because of course our residents and everybody who can should be staying at home, but our key workers who are coming out every day to do such important jobs are obviously still in the community. And so we thought, and government thought it right, that key workers should be prioritised for this testing. And unfortunately, we had already set up all of our centres, so it was a straightforward operation to change the focus of who we invite along. We have Steve today, and one of the key things to note really is that when the testing was established, we were offered funding from government to get it going. Of course, that funding is based on a per test fee, but now we're focusing on key workers. We're expecting much lower levels of testing, which will of course have an impact upon the funding. And I'm sure there will be a conversation about what the total cost will be. Steve, perhaps I could ask you how you think it will be heading now that we are only focusing on key workers, because of course we still have to staff the buildings all day, but we're dealing with a lower throughput. And thank you once again.
Yeah, no, thanks, Chairman. Good evening, everybody. Yeah, obviously the numbers are down because, as you rightly say, we're not encouraging people to come out of their houses simply to be tested, when we're asking people to lock down, really. So we have changed strategy. We've changed track. We have a comms strategy aimed at key workers, and we have already attracted construction workers, shop assistants, etc., to attend our sites, and they're coming almost on a daily basis, which is great. Yes, we are slightly overstaffed at the moment because we set up for community mass testing, and of course that's not where we are now. But rather than reduce the numbers straight away, we're waiting to see what the effect of our comms strategy is. Just give it a few days, and if it looks as though we are in a position to reduce numbers, then we will, because obviously we want to keep the costs down as much as possible. But we are also, as a twin track, looking at vulnerable settings as well. So we're actively talking to nursery schools, sheltered housing accommodation, and we're looking to see how we can travel to other sites where we need to. If they can't get to our sites, we'll get to them. So we're actively looking at that, and we're also looking to see whether in fact we could adopt a vehicle to actually park up and do some lateral flow testing. Brent have 2 such vehicles, as do Harrow. So we're going to borrow one of the vehicles, see how it works, see if it's worth doing, and if it is, we'll potentially adopt one of our own. So there's quite a bit going on, but the testing centres, although the numbers have gone down, they're still being very well used. So I'll leave it there, Jim. Thanks.
Thank you, Steve. I think I just finish by saying, obviously, the decision is an emerging approach, and I think Steve neatly sums up that it is absolutely an emerging approach. This is not finished, but it is good that we are in a position that we have now more tests than we actually necessarily need. So a lot has changed in the last few months.
I believe that actually the key decision was really agreeing to delegate authority to the Director of Public Health in consultation with you, Jem, to agree, what cohorts of the community, who should be prioritised, and also now, what our local approach is going to be towards the rollout of the vaccination programme. And I don't know whether either you or perhaps Russell Stahl, who's here to talk for public health, whether you'd like to comment on the mass vaccination programme. And it's perhaps something that we might wish to touch on, given that there were, today there are, well, not in the borough, but across the country, there are more than 1,500 deaths from COVID. So we are at a very precarious time, aren't we?
Absolutely. I think I have to reiterate the fact that whilst the news may be somewhat improving on cases, you're absolutely right to highlight the deaths. The end result of high case numbers is unfortunately deaths. The two go hand in hand. We still have very high levels of community transmission. We are hopeful, of course, lockdown will work, but the simplest way out of all of this is, as you say, the vaccination. We have our 3 hubs up and running, with a mass hub coming in February, and perhaps Russell, you'd like to give further details on how they're operating.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, so the hubs are up and running and are operating well. There is some logistical challenges in terms of the distribution of the vaccines coming in, but they are by and large working very well. And we do have the Science Museum in South Kensington coming on track in February as well, which will provide more mass vaccination. And we did alert the NHS to the fact that the South Kensington tube station will be closing for a period from February, but they've still stuck with that decision. So that will provide the opportunity for for us to roll out the vaccination locally on a much greater scale. And we're working with the NHS day by day on this, and it's our #1 priority.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the leadership team? I can see a few stray hands up, but I'm not quite sure. I know Pat wishes to ask a question, but is anyone else from the leadership team? No.
Yes,
Mary-Trey.
Elizabeth.
My hand up.
Elizabeth, I was just going to say something, if that's
Sure.
okay.
Yep.
It wasn't really a question. It was really just to say that obviously I've had personal experience on the usefulness of this asymptomatic testing. And I was skipping around gaily before Christmas and happened to walk past our testing centre to discover that I was COVID positive. And clearly, if I hadn't have known this at that particular time, I would have just continued to go around infecting everybody. So I just wanted to really recall my credit to the teams of people who were running the centres. They were absolutely fantastic, and they continue to do a fantastic job. And I think really just to finish, also, I'm very mindful of the health and well-being of our staff and how difficult it is for them at the moment to deliver our day-to-day services. I know from our own housing management team, for example, who are running a really important service, there's only a handful of people actually allowed into the office as a result of the COVID lockdown, and I wish them well. So really, I just wanted to thank everybody and endorse this report, and just hope that obviously by assisting in this national mass vaccination effort, we'll play our part in order to get the country back to some form of normality over the coming months. But thank you.
Can I echo that? I think most of the councils here have tried out the community testing, and I thought it was, well, I do it regularly, and I think it's really fantastic. So really well done. And not only that, not only just us, but loads of our residents have remarked upon the efficiency, the friendliness, and really the rapidity, how quickly you can get tested. So if we can pivot and do it on people who are working to ensure that they can carry on working and don't spread the virus, that really is great. I know that Councillor Blakeman wishes to ask a question or to comment, but before her, I'd like to ask the Chair of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee if she has anything to add.
No, just to say thank you, Elizabeth, to all staff who are working in the testing centres and also in the rollout of the vaccination. So. Thank
you. Councillor Blakeman, you've been very patient.
Thank you. Yeah, there are just 2 points. Well, I had my lateral flow test. Unfortunately, it was negative, and I had that at Kensington Leisure Centre. They said at the time there that they were not getting many takers, which was a bit worrying. But reading the paper on the community engagement side, it said that they're contacting residents' associations, and I've made this point time and time and time again. They do not contact residents' associations. My own RA, which is directly opposite the leisure centre, has not yet been contacted, and despite being on the website in the list of residents' associations, and I suspect that's true of other residents' associations as well. And I think you really do need to go beyond just the council estate residents' associations for community engagement. My second point, and again this is the second time I've noticed it, is that the leaflet that was sent out did not include any details in the local community languages. Now, thanks to Councillor El Naghi, we managed to get an Arabic translation of it. But what about the other community languages? Is this a new practice on the part of the council no longer to use the community languages because it's not the first time it's happened?
Who would like to answer that, Steve?
I'm not aware that we've stopped using the any language services. We certainly do in the hub, and we have been doing for shielding residents since the start of the outbreak. So I'll certainly look into that. But we are working on a daily basis with community engagement colleagues to make sure that we're trying to reach the right people. In Goulburn and the north of Kensington at the moment, that the numbers are eye-wateringly high, and we're actually looking to see if there's anything specific we can do in that area, including reintroducing the Venture Centre as a centre for COVID testing, and it's something I'll be bringing to Gold tomorrow. I'm sorry, Don, if that answers the specific question. Probably not. Apologies.
Well, I suspect there's been a shift as well, hasn't there, between originally when we were trying to say to everyone, please come out and get tested, because before Christmas, everyone was out and about, whereas now the message has subtly changed and it's really stay at home, and we're saying everyone should stay at home unless they are a key worker or a construction worker or someone who is out and about, in which case we're encouraging them to come to be tested.
Yes, my concerns are really for the community engagement department and the communications department, because I've noticed, leaflets have gone out without any community languages. And of course, the community engagement is very, very limited and it needs to be extended. And I keep pointing this out.
Thank you.
If I may,
yes, please.
Just to say, I will follow that up at the task force meeting tomorrow morning. Comms do attend the task force meeting, and I'll raise that tomorrow morning, definitely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions, or is that a stray hand?
I had my hand up, Chair. Can I?
Ah, you're the stray hand.
Yes, indeed. Before I ask my question, can I say that I agree with what Councillor Blakeman has said about resident associations? And the other thing is that quite often we get emails as councillors from officers asking us, can we give them details of the chairs or the secretaries of resident associations? And of course, because of data protection, we're not allowed to know who they are unless they're in our ward and we know who they are. So I'm not sure there's a great expertise shown about finding out about resident associations. But my question, given that we have the Director of Public Health, hopefully still here, and we talked about mass vaccination, I was listening, I think, yesterday on BBC Radio London. They had, as most stations have, they had a medical expert from, I think, King's College London talking about vaccinations, saying that if you're vaccinated, you should not assume that you can go out and make hay, as it were, and assume that all is well, because he said it takes 21 days for the bug, if you have it, to leave your body. And in the meantime, even if you've been vaccinated, you apparently can be spreading it everywhere, but you yourself may not get ill because you've had the vaccine. I wonder if our Director of Public Health can comment on that, because I hear it endlessly on radio in particular, that I listen to all the time from residents. Most residents and most people think that if they have the vaccine, that's it. It's over. They can go out and live normally. And
let's ask Russell to comment on that.
Thank you, Leader. So it's 21 days after the second vaccine. I think Chris Whitty, the Chief Medical Officer, has said that it's unlikely that those who've been vaccinated will transmit the virus, but because it's still relatively a new bug, that's been looked at by Porton Down, and I don't think that there's conclusive evidence to say to that effect yet. So it's unlikely, but we don't know for sure that those who've been vaccinated cannot transmit the virus.
Thank you. Thank you very much. If there are no further questions, the leadership team is just asked to consider, which I believe we've done, and note the urgent key decision taken on the 4th of January by me. So I think we've considered it, and I believe we've noticed it. So if you're happy with that, and I don't believe there's any other business. No. So it just leaves it to me to say I wish you all a very good evening, and stay safe and stay at home. Thank you.
Thank you.